Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome to Who Am I? What is Who Am I, and what are we going to do? We're going to talk about my favorite subject. Source energy and the nature of reality itself. We're just going to riff about it from the perspective of a human being here on planet Earth, somewhere on planet Earth, sometime in the 21st century. The beginning of the second quarter of the 21st century, apparently, is where we are. And the question hangs: who am I? What is source energy? What is the nature of reality? And how can I understand it better? From a matter-of-fact point of view. Just a matter of fact. I don't mean to step on anybody else's beliefs or religion or whatever. We're going to talk about our biotechnology. We're going to ask questions like, who are we? Where did we come from? What is our nature? Why are we here? What is the object of the exercise? What does it mean to be human? What's the value of a human being? You know, we live in a world now where AI is increasingly going to do it all better than us. Everything from the performance art to the poetry and everything. AI does all the creative stuff as good as we do. Automation can do all the grunt work better than we do. So what's the value of a human being? Our value, is it in our ability to produce? And only when we can produce do we have a ticket to the grocery store or the ability to pay our own rent? All of these questions are very interesting questions, and questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves and each other. But, you know, what I think is standing in the way of a lot of things is our lack of understanding about who we are, and how our psychotechnology I could be coining words about this. What am I talking about? How do you work? What's the meaning of your emotions? What's the configuration of your being? Who are you? And what the heck are you flailing around trying to do? And what's your meaning, your worth? When we aren't just individuals, we're a superorganism. And so we are mankind also. Every single one of us is a cell in the body of a great being called humanity. And what does all that mean? You know, how does the new physics work into all this? Did you know? Now I know that if the one person or the one person who watches me live, and then, I don't know, the smattering of people who might catch this on the replay. However, at any given time, if you're a regular listener and you wonder why I keep saying the same things when you know that I'm just talking to you, there always is the possibility that new people might enter the room and they might not know what I'm talking about. So the question is, did you know that quantum and cosmological physics, the mathematics of cosmological and quantum physics, has been reconciled? But when you do it, then your recognition of what you're looking at, your ability to see it, depends on your own ability to see yourself. Because consciousness, who we are, the meaning of all things, kind of, is right there in the mathematics, saying that the big is the small. It isn't that when you look into the small, you don't just see a bitlet of the whole. You see a reflection of the whole. It's like when you look at it, when you look into the small, you see yourself. You see I don't know how to it's really interesting though. What it is, what gravity at the cosmological scale is it's the strong force when you look at it at the quantum scale. It's the same thing. It's just you're looking at one large and then you're looking at the other one tight and small. Anyway, I advertise that what I'm going to be talking about is real interesting and epic and big, and it's just me, and I'm just a layperson. But you know what? I understand some of this stuff, and my biggest position is that, holy crap, all human beings can understand this. And this clever that I think I really am is not unique to me. This clever that I am is coming from an accidental alignment, accidental things that I have done with my own consciousness that lead me to a place where all of it kind of comes together in a way that I think is significant, and other people would be helped by seeing this perspective. But it's not a perspective out there, it's a stumbling upon a way to line up from within. And Nassim Haramein said something the other day that made me realize what part of it is. And it's part of what he's gotten a hold of. And what it is you need a general foundation of imaginary or imaginal. You need to set your you need to align your imagination up roughly with how it really is. And upon doing that, a whole lot of understanding just flows right to you naturally. And the reason that it does is what you're doing is you are two selves. You are a quantum self. You are a cosmological self. And what they are is data streams of information. And they're coming to you vibrationally. And it's coming to you from what Abraham calls your inner being, which you could almost call your outer being, because that's who it is. It's the one that's you from your skin on out. But it's not you from your skin in. It includes all of you, including your body. As a matter of fact, it's the information of you is sort of emanating from the cells from your atomic structure. You know, it's emanating from your protons and your atomic nature. So you're tagged into all of the universe by virtue of the space-time structure on the grid that you inhabit. It's really very cool. It's very cool. And I'm also getting very esoteric. A lot of what I like to talk about is the nature of the positive and negative self, because human beings have a real problem with this. We have a real problem with our negative self. And we keep jumping out to the conditions around the negative self in order to explain the negative self. When in actual fact, the way to explain the negative self is to forget about the conditions around what's happening in this negative person acting in negative ways, whether it's you or whether it's somebody else. It doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. It has to do with the better way to understand what the problem is not look at the conditions, but look at the configuration. Who are we and how does this work? What is your negative self? What has happened whenever you go into your negative self, even if it's tiny. And it's not that your negative self is wrong. It's just that there's a bigger frame than that. And from the bigger frame, you can get to, you might have to go to the biggest frame, but you can always go to a bigger frame out than where that negative thing is occurring. You can bump it out to a larger frame, and if you have to, you can get all the way to the frame of the total unconditional that is completely okay with all conditions, is never ever fazed about any condition that it's observing. Now you are not like that. You are in a physical body. So at some point there's a point where you're concerned about the physicality of it. I'm concerned about it at the level of where I am a biological being. This is where my concern, my hackles is starting to come up. Well, my hackles have been up for 40 years. But what do you do about it when it's 1985 and the world is me, and, 20th century society is really just getting smoking, and multinational corporations are rising. The big ag is crushing little ag and swallowing it. I've just discovered horrid truths like this horrific thing going on in the back of our medical field called vivisection. It was like a $7 billion industry back in the mid-'80s when I discovered about it. And how it's propping up both the legal structure and the pharmaceutical structure of our medical industry, all set up probably intentionally or certainly with threads of darkness by John D. Rockefeller early in the 20th century. And then here's this institutional structure, all these institutional structures that I'm looking around. How do you fight that? How do you fight any of that? So my hackles have been up for the last 40 years. But what's really got my hackles up is from a biological point of view, we're destroying the threads of biological diversity on planet Earth. And we really should not be doing that. It's so precious. It's so beautiful. Now, do not despair, even amongst what we have crushed at the moment. We could come to our senses and coax it all back. And we could coax it all back in beautiful forms, in forms that were kinder and less thorny, less poisonous, more whimsical. We could bioassist the whole thing back from our connected, aligned selves and do a good job of it, co-creating with this source that we are all dancing with and all a part of. We could do that. And as a matter of fact, I am advising that we do that. But the first thing I think we got to do is we have to understand who we are. We got to answer these questions. Who am I? What am I? What's the meaning of my life? What's the object of the exercise? I believe the object of the exercise, in general terms, is joyful sustainability. And I mean that fully. So if we reach sustainable, but it's not joyful, we're not there yet. We have not made it. And I'm not sure that we are ever going to make it to our path anyway, unless we achieve at least contentment and satisfaction. We have to be satisfied or more, or we have not. I think joyful sustainability is a good way to put the mission on planet Earth. And it's not a given. It's not a given. Now, ultimately, all is given. Ultimately. You are fine. You are in a conscious universe and you are free floating in a way. You're not exactly attached to the scenery around you in quite the way that you think that you are. And how you feel in any given moment is your indication of where you are flying into, what you are moving towards. If you feel trepidatious, then adjust your what's the word for it? Because it's not the condition. You don't be wary about the condition that you're flying into, although the condition that you're flying into, you aren't going to like it. It's not the condition that's the problem. It has to do with your controls, the helm. The helm of your starship is what the problem is, not space outside of you. And so the idea is you've got to adjust I'm just going to go with this analogy. The screen is showing you the viewfinder, how it's showing you the surface of the planet you're looking at. Are you seeing it like, harsh Halloween? Or are you seeing it like friendly, happy Casper the Ghost kind of Halloween? Or is it, Dementors and zombies? Or are those zombies playful, or are they Dementors that chill your very bones? Which one? It's not the condition that's actually the problem. You're flying your starship into a multitude of... So I was thinking about this yesterday. I was blowing up in my mind the notion of the multiverse. And what it is the universe around you, the way that it's bigger than you think that it is that it's a universe that looks conditionally like it looks, but feels in every frequency. And so there's the real harsh, horrible versions of it. And then there's the more playful, more connected, more joyful, flowing with the consciousness versions of it. And you have the option at any given time to fly your starship into any version of the multiverse that but we all are connected to one another. But I can go into a dark version of the universe, and you can go into a light version of the same universe. I'm not necessarily stepping on your toes, but if my dark version of my dark universe starts... What I think I'm trying to say is, don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about what other people are doing, because on the one hand, it's not your business, and you can't change what they are doing without jumping outside of your own connection to source and trying to force them from the outside, which disconnects you from your source, which now means that you got nothing to say for or to them or anything. And so just whether or not you can't. So just mind your own business. Leave them out of the equation. That's not how you get what you want. You mind your own business and pay attention to the only thing that you need to pay attention to, which is your own alignment to your own source. And then, and only then, from that position, do whatever feels good, whatever feels like fun, whatever feels natural, whatever feels helpful. It doesn't have to feel fun. It just shouldn't feel painful, tortured, heavy. If you're feeling that way, then it's because your starship is starting to glide into a heavier version of the universe. And if you really want to go there, every experience is out there ready for you to have. Whatever you want. It's almost like that, sometimes it strikes me how analogous it is to that planet on. It's original Star Trek episode. It's episode 16, season 1. It's called Shore Leave. And what happens is they go down to a planet, and there is no plant life or anything. It's just a foundation of. There's plant life. There's no animals. There's a foundation of plant life, but there's no insects or anything. It appears pretty pleasant. Excuse me. But then, as they're thinking of things, these things that they're thinking of start appearing around them, and they appear dangerous. They're strafing them, or they're, the one is a knight jousting, another one is a tiger, another one is a samurai. There's all kinds of threatening things that are, coming up as people are thinking them. Bones is even killed, and everybody's all upset. But then it turns out he wasn't really killed. He was taken. It was just fake killed, and his body was taken down to the center of the planet where they fixed him up, good as new, and spit him back out for more adventures. And so the idea is that you're way safer than you. Death is now safe, or at least on this planet, death is safe, and whatever you think about comes into being right in front of you. Now, blow that into longer time and bigger spaces, and that's kind of the nature of the business that you find yourself in. Death is safe, and we are made of plonks, and we are all in this together. We are the whole universe, and we are our specific individual parts, and every single one of us is that. Now, when I stand here grandly and say, I am the whole universe, I have to say it softly, because everybody's going to think that I'm special. And darn tootin', I'm special. I am special, but the implication is that you are too. That together we are a special beyond imagining. And you know what? This is a new thought for me, because I have always been pretty prejudiced against human beings. I've always thought we were pretty yucky. Painful creatures that I have a hard time getting along with. And that's one of the reasons why I don't hang around with people very much. Although one-on-one, I can get along with people. I just... it's hard for me to be the popular kid. I never was really the popular kid, although I'm lovely enough, I suppose. We are all beautiful, all of us beautiful, and it doesn't really matter. The more beautiful that we reach for on the inside, the more it will reflect on the outside, and it won't necessarily be, Cosmo beautiful. Those pictures of Greg Braden has some pictures of he has one of a 120-year-old Tibetan Buddhist nun, and although they have the records of how old she is, but they're not connected to the outside world. We would not necessarily out here have recognized, she's 120 years old and she's in the records of mankind or whatever. And some of those Buddhist monasteries that he visited back in the 90s are no more. China has squashed them, or they have, really gone underground. Their wisdom and their teachings are under attack. We don't know who we are on planet Earth right now, and there is plenty of chaotic business out there that we could be worried about. But my teaching is really that don't worry about it. Worry is not what we're reaching for. And the locking onto a condition and focusing on changing that condition from a worried position is never, ever, 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 ever going to get you what you want. Which is why most people, or a lot of people, even well-meaning people, give up the crusade and go back to just living their life as best they can and being as happy as they can. And you know what? That's actually what we should be doing anyway. The only thing I would add to that is let's do that from a position of generally understanding who we are. And if we would do that, then our general systems, how we line up together as a collective being, would be more in alignment. Our criminal justice system wouldn't be so freaking mean. You know, we're trying to harsh everybody into better behavior, beat them into, better morale. And those beatings will continue until morale improves. It's all quite ridiculous. And we will realize it someday. One of the biggest problems is when you realize what the negative self is and how those beatings just produce more and more and more negative self. It brings out the demon, the Loki, the Shiva in us. And we get more of a charge to burn it to the ground. You have that kind of energy that you're dealing with out there in the world. We're a collective being. And what I do affects you, and what you do affects me. And that's one of the reasons why we can't get out of each other's business. When somebody in their negative state, comes into your energy field and starts being chaotic, it's like they're flowing upstream. They're causing it's a physical thing. And I'm going to make it my academic life's work to study this phenomenon, because there's a physical thing that happens. There's an energy field that is created when you go into your negative self. Now, I have had a core energy field space, very tight, very small. It's basically me. I've let my husband in because he is dependably peaceful. He can be dependably peaceful. When he works on the car, he can turn the air a little bit blue. But I've been kind of working with him on his negative self too. And he's almost got his negative self in as good a control as I do, which is pretty good control, but not 100%, but still pretty gentle. Just him and I. And our energy field is it's pretty neutral. There's not a lot going on, but there's not much chaos. It's when others come into my energy field and they are filled with chaos, I totally notice that. And actually, I'm not sure what I'm going to say about this. I just recently listened to a really good Abraham about this topic, about how to deal with that. Because you noticing them in your field sort of throws you off your game. It takes you out of your connection to source yourself, because you care about them being in chaos. You don't want them to be going that direction. Anyway, let's just go back to talking about our negative self. What is it? What is it? Because that's what the person's doing. And their effect on you has to do with your configuration, and what they're doing has to do with their configuration, and all of it is our configuration. So let's just talk about our configuration. What's going on? You are two selves. You just are two selves, and one of them is pure vibration. And in its pure vibration, no physicality slows it down or interferes with its ability to feel the whole field. So that's why it knows everything. It knows everything. From one side of the universe to the other. And apparently the length of time that it takes for information from the other side of the universe to make it to this side of the universe is it's almost instantaneous, but it's not actually instantaneous. It's the length of time that it takes one Planck to make one turn around. A Planck turning one turn all the way around gets all the information from one side of the universe to the other. Now, when you go out from the Planck scale to bigger scales, We just live in a universe that's just so marvelous, so marvelous. So that Planck scale is think of it. Think of your two selves as sometimes this does this to me. So forgive me. It'll tag me into a place where I just start looking at something that I have no words for. And then I remember, oh yeah, that's right, I'm broadcasting. I can't have no words for this. The audience cannot see what I'm looking at. So I have to put it into words, or I have to get into a place in the thought where I can put it into words. And right now, hold on a second, I'm going to pause the recording and turn my heater down because it's actually too warm. Hold on one second. And then I think I'll check the chat room and see whether there's anybody there. All right. All right. So I'm going to check the chat room before I go back. And someone is here. Or someone was here. Someone was here and they said, you know what? I don't want to listen to this. It probably wasn't my regular person. That's discouraging. That's all right. Not everybody knows who I am. So some people might come and look at this show and be looking for more technical information. They may not actually be looking for the esoteric wholeness of this information and the reason that I have taken to campfires and fire pits and fireplaces and such is because I'm doing this as fireside chats. This is a fireside chat with Amelie Starchild, your host for the morning, as we discuss who we are as human beings and what does it mean to be a human being here on planet Earth. The discussion I had just gone into was a discussion of our negative self. What is our negative self and how does it work? I have to be careful. I am two selves. You are two selves. You are two selves. And what is the meaning of negative emotion? If I have any negative emotion, say for instance, I get discouraged because I just went over to the chat room and I saw 29 seconds. Somebody listened to me for 29 seconds and then went, I don't want to listen to her anymore. And I could feel negative about that. I could feel discouraged because I'm a small human being and I want people to like me. But the fact of the matter is that I do this for bigger reasons than just in the moment instant popularity. And although it is nice if one person likes you, it really isn't the end of the world if a million people don't like you. So the only person that you need to get straight with is you. You and you. There are two of you, and one of you really knows. One of you is the bigger self. One of you is the vibrational mega self. And that's an important thing to understand as we deal with each other. As we deal with each other in all of our socioeconomic ways. And the really interesting part about all of this is when you do understand source energy, how it works, how all of the Plancks are touching one another, and through their exchange of information across the whole field, and the information that they are exchanging has to do with where physicality has spun into being, into organization. And where its location is on the grid, and things like its vector direction, its temperature, its velocity. All of those kinds of things is what all the Plancks are exchanging. And when we understand this source energy field, we are going to understand that we don't need to burn fossil fuel. We don't need to have I'm air quoting the word, fuel source. We don't need to have a fuel source. We don't have to go mine one somewhere, because the ultimate fuel source is everywhere. It's the fuel source that an electric eel tags into to get its electricity to scare you away with its. It's the source of the energy that a firefly uses. It's the source of energy that a star uses. And we can tap into that same thing. We can do it consciously. We can do it intentionally. We can do it for our own purposes. And our own purposes can ultimately be for reasons like we want to lift the entire carbon footprint of humanity off of the throat of planet Gaia, planet Eden, and, joyfully co-create with the biofield. In fun ways. I'm not suggesting that what we have to do is live a paradigm of scarcity or lack, or go backwards in time to a simpler time, a more agrarian time. What we need to do is we need to go forward to a time where we are a mixture of high tech and ultimate gregarian. Where the whole planet has been re-gardened into the most amazing theme park imaginable, co-creating with God itself and optimizing all the systems and recognizing that we are one being. And so, if I live greedily to create a system where I get it all and you get nothing, the problem is that my life is finite. And then I die, and now a system is sitting there behind me where one person gets it and everybody else suffers. And you don't want to create systems like that, because that's not who we are. We are all cells in the great being that is humanity. And we will pass, and the next will come. And if we build a society where we're all going and flowing, and so what do we want to do? We want to grow wonderful food, enough to feed us all. And we want to grow that food in a way that doesn't kill the rest of the biofield. We shouldn't be killing the rest of the biofield as we grow mountains and mountains of human-friendly food. We don't have to do that. We could get into alignment, get our systems into alignment, and grow tremendous amounts of food. But what we need to do is we need to pass it back down to small ag. And one of the ways we're going to be able to do this is when we have our clean, free energy source. Now, the smaller operations can afford to be a small operation and still capitalize enough, produce enough goods that they can trade on the market, for the things that they don't have, that they don't produce. But in the meanwhile, they can afford to live on their space and feed their farmhands and feed themselves, and look after the welfare of their livestock and all of that. Sort of more of a modular approach. Now, how are we going to transition from? Well, it's all going to be natural. I promise you. So many of these things are going to be natural as soon as we recognize who we are and how this works and what source energy is, and the fact that we can plug into it. When we recognize the physics of this and recognize that we can plug into it directly, and we no longer need fossil fuel. We just don't. You can see it as soon as you line up inside yourself and recognize. So add these huge fields of thought together. I challenge you. Go out and study Nassim Haramein and what he's saying, and I'll direct you to a few places to go. Watch The Connected Universe. It was narrated by Patrick Stewart. It was made back in 2016, 4 years after his first published mathematics and physics papers that unified the quantum and cosmological fields, where you could see how one was just the other one looking at it differently. You look into the one and you see the whole thing when you look into the small. And when you look out to the big, well, obviously you see the whole thing when you look out to the big, but you see the whole thing when you look into the small too. And the holographic nature and all of that. So watch that movie. Then he's got a wonderful series on Gaia. You can find the first episode of it on YouTube. It's called Quantum Revolution. Go watch that. Then if you're enough of a nerd, you can find on YouTube the video explanation of the latest paper that they did about 15 months ago, September 23, the paper called The Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity. Put all that together, then, and visualize it. Visualize it in your mind. Put that in your head as an imagination template, if you will. Then go over to Abraham Hicks and listen to a few thousand of her clips of her seminars. I actually went to one of her seminars. It was a cruise seminar, so there was like 5 days of seminars, and it was really good. It was just after COVID, so there wasn't a lot of people on the ship either. It was 2022, and people were still a little nervous about cruises. Getting stuck out in the ocean with, a few thousand of your other friends all getting sicker and nobody wanting you to pull into a port. Well, that didn't happen. But anyway, go over there, and then in your open mind, put together, try to see what she's saying about the inner being and the vibrational nature of the universe and the meaning of your positive and negative emotions. And then put both of these things together, and you'll have an understanding of why I'm compelled to do this show. Because I want to show us who we are. And I want all of us to understand just generally. I'm only looking for a general. And everybody else from that point, it's a point of alignment. Alignment is our only problem. We don't have any other problem. The universe is so divinely designed and so cooperatively organized. We just need to get into alignment with how it really is. And one of the things, if you see any part of this as an us versus them paradigm, then you are at least in that place partially out of alignment with your true self. Our true self does not see any of it as us versus them. Our true self sees it all as us playing with us. It's a win, 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 win across the board. And she can hold a win-win thought in her mind. We have a hard time doing that. We seem to think that it has to be win-lose. Win-lose. But when you play it like a win-lose, all you create is a whole bunch of losers that could have been winners. And it's really funny when you start looking at people's behavior and you realize what is keeping them from playing the win-win position, because your inner being is standing in the win-win position, wanting us all to win and seeing how everyone's desires dovetails with everyone's true desires. Everyone's true desires dovetails with everyone else's true desires. And what all of our true desire is for is joyful sustainability and playfulness and joyfulness and abundance and beauty and freedom. and good food and good friends and fun and a good time and exhilarating emotions. All of us want those things. That's the general. That's the general. Now, look at what we've got. Why do we have less and less of what I just described and more of this darkness and this anger and this chaos? It's because we don't understand who we are. At least that's what I maintain. And that a better understanding of who we are will lead us directly to peace on earth with one another, better overall systems work, as we set up our transportation systems, our communication systems, our political systems, our economic systems, our medical systems, any system that we need a system for. As we build our organizations, we need to build them from a pure intention. They have to be a pure intention. And from that pure intention, the organization that grows from there will not have a poison thread in it. But if you start it from anything less than that, then the organizational structure, as it gets bigger, because it will live through time, and it will get bigger until finally it's a monstrosity, and we call it things like the military-industrial complex, or the financial. I don't know. Even our medical systems have poison threads in there where they were not in alignment with reality to begin with. And now they are not serving us because there's clunky places in there where they're going against how it really is. And it's creating all around us, within the hearts of human beings, dark energy in places where human beings are not being served. And what that means, I use words like that, but what it means is there's places where people, they're frightened because they can't feed their children, that kind of stuff. That's what Shiva energy really is. It's fear. It's anger at who you think is responsible or whatever. But any of that, if you're making your calculations from fear or anger in any way, you're not coming from who you really are. You're coming from a twisted, turned backwards, 180 degrees backwards, dark position. And now, even though you might innocently be doing this, your eyes still seem to be you still think you've got your eyes on something positive. But you don't anymore. You're turned backwards, and as you try to act, you're creating a negative energy field that everybody around you can feel. They can feel the chaos of it. You're disturbing their ability to organize in the proper, clockwise instead of counterclockwise thing that, that negative energy field as it comes into your field of attraction, how it is disruptive. It's disruptive because it's going the opposite direction. And it's chaotic. And it is doing that because the person involved is literally or figuratively or metaphysically, I'm not sure exactly, meta-literally, I don't know. They're turned backwards. They're turned backwards, and they think they're turned forwards, and they're acting, but they're acting from their negative self. They're creating this negative energy wave that's causing chaos in the field. And when they do that, that's how come we can't get out of each other's business. Because we affect each other's energy fields. So I'm going to go back and look at just in case somebody else has come into I hope my friend comes in, because she listens long enough so that she has a sense of my greater picture, what I'm really talking about overall. And there is no one here. There is no one here. Or is there? There is no one here. There was someone here for 29 seconds, but Indigo has not come back, is not here today. I don't know why. Hopefully she will catch the replay. I feel her spirit in the room all the time. Metaphorically, she's sort of here. Also, I know that the life of this, it lives on. I have put it out into the airwaves now, and it will reverberate. It might take a minute before, somebody gets a hold of it who then goes, wow, have you heard this? This is the most amazing vision of hope and clarity that I have ever heard. Now, maybe none of that sounded like hope, but if you take the Abraham portion of it, the ask and it is given aspect of this, that's when you find your ability to stay out of other people's business. And you quit trying to assert yourself in a frantic way. I must tell the world this message so that we will have peace. Trust that everyone has an inner being. Everyone does. And actually, the whole field is intelligent. And I'm just kind of getting on a bandwagon that I think there's lots of people out there with elements of what I say. Absolutely. There's nothing I'm saying in a way that's entirely original, except for I can iterate it from where I am in a way that nobody else can. And you can iterate it from where you stand the way that nobody else can. Because only from where you stand can you get the clear message from source, the clear impulse to act in perfect harmony with the rest of the field. That's why only you can call your own shots. You can't call somebody else up and say, hey, what should I do? Well, they can give you a rough approximation, but it's nothing like the clarity of what you could do if you could line up with your own self. And as a matter of fact, if you ask somebody else, you are most certainly limiting yourself to the prejudices that humanity already holds. If you want to get a hold of something truly original and interesting, you've got to go inside your own self. You can't be looking at it outside, because you'll only find what other people have already discovered when you look outside. You go inside and all the information is there, because you are the whole universe. You are holographic. The whole universe is holographic. What does that mean? That means all of it is in every bit of it. And how is that happening? It's because there's like this cosmological interference pattern caused by all the Plancks touching all the Plancks all the time. And as they touch each other, and where they are touching each other is when you look at it from the quantum scale. When you peer into the Planck field, you're looking at the whole universe at the Planck scale. Kind of, in a way, in a mysterious way. The new understandings of this is going to disarm the military-industrial complex. Actually, they might have some of this information secretly. They're blackest of black ops, but they don't really understand it, really, or they would come to a highly philosophical point about it, because you realize that the whole thing is connected so intimately that if you do harm anywhere outside of what you think is you, you realize that there is nothing outside of you and you have just harmed yourself. And so it automatically makes people very peaceful, very ready to find the way for us all to get along with one another. We keep blaming all of the rest of the world for their aggressive ways to justify our military behavior. And I don't think that that's valid anymore, if it ever was. I think it's all stemmed from us not understanding who we are here. And these days, the questions are going to loom larger and larger. What with the rise of AI and automation, a human being's ability to pay their way to the grocery store is going to come in deep, deep question. What does it mean to be a human being? What is your value as a human being? When automation can do the grunt work better and AI can do the creative work better than a human being, then what does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be in this universe of wholeness? That's when you come to the wholeness that we are, then the meaning of it all, we're all in this together, and there is no us and them. That's actually the truth of it. And you might object to that on, individual grounds. But I'm telling you, that's what our problem is. We're playing it like an us versus them instead of we are all in this together, and a win-win-win-win-win-win. Actually, I started to bring this up earlier. I find this really interesting. You'd think that everyone would want to play a win-win game. Because let's face it, you play a win-win, you play the paradigm like a win-win, and everybody wins, right? And you're going to get tired of all that winning. But the two places where people resist the win-win, they're surprising. The first one is the most surprising. People have a hard time adding themselves in. When they see the grandness of the whole picture, they want to sacrifice themselves for it. That's their first inclination. That when they see the magnificence, they want to sacrifice themselves for this almighty wholeness. But that's not what you should do. So they should be playing a win-win, and they have a hard time dealing themselves in. They can play lose-win, I lose and the wholeness wins. That one they can do. They have a hard time dealing themselves in. The other one is very nice people, well-meaning people, perhaps even people that you love or have loved in the past, who maybe still wish well, although you're having a harder time loving them these days because they're so hard to love. Maybe it's an ex, and you used to love them, and now, or they used to love you and now they hate you. I'm having a hard time with the identity of this one, how to play the identity of this one. Some people have a very hard time wishing their exes well. You have a hard time wishing you don't want your enemy to win. You don't want whoever you have declared your enemy. I'm right, you're wrong. Now you don't want them to win. Because if they win, somehow it makes you less right. Or some such. I'm not sure what that is exactly. But the anti-Trump people, they want nothing more than for Trump to eat dirt. If the win-win involves their enemies winning, then they don't want any part of it. You can see this I see this in a few individual relationships close up where it's pointed at people's exes, where they cannot bear the idea of their ex being okay, coming out of it smelling like a rose, or being secure or successful in the world. They want their ex to eat concrete, And so we're trying to hide the fact that somebody's doing well, because this person would not be happy to know that their ex is doing just fine without them. Thank you very much. I know I have 2 people in my life that, or tangential to my life. They're not really in my life, but where they're having this issue with the negative self. The negative self is a real issue. It's a real issue individually, and it's a real issue collectively. And I believe that you can understand the negative self by understanding the inner being. The inner being is your greater cosmological self, the holographic you that really knows. You can trust that you really have overview. You honestly and truly do. It's not just some kind of spooky philosophical concept. It's reality. It's physics reality. So interesting. And our full recognition of this is going to get us off of fossil fuel, off the surface of the planet with gravity control and peace on earth, goodwill towards men. It's going to get us all of that. But we're going to have to consciously understand who we are and what our biotechnological configuration is. I think one of the reasons we're having trouble doing this unconsciously, doing this just naturally, is because somebody gave us a bump, a physiological bump in our evolution, plumped up our neocortex, gave us a thinking mind, and now we can't do it unconsciously. We have to do it consciously. So we have to consciously understand who we are and how this whole paradigm plays out, this big, small, how it fits together, and how to use that understanding of how it fits together to have a new, joyful, fun experience with this planet and the biofield that we can co-create and play with. And I think that's the message I'm going to leave us with. I'll be back tomorrow. Someday I'll have more people in the room, and those more people will give me questions so I can flesh this out. Because I could flesh this out if people had questions about where I think we are, where I think we're going. Do I have any idea of how long it'll take us? Absolutely not. Do I have a lot of information about lots of details in the specific field immediately around me? Absolutely not. Do I have a pretty good handle on the general situation and the general field of information? Do I have a pretty good grip on it? Yes, I do. And so tomorrow I'll be back and I'll talk some more about it, or maybe I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see. Every day is a question. Some days I can't make it. Some days I just can't sit here and talk to myself for an hour. But if I can, I'll be back. And until then, do the best you can. Soothe yourself. Everything is really all right. If you would link up, vibrationally speaking, with your inner being who knows all things, you would realize how all right it is, and how all right you are, and how to fly your starship in the direction of more and more all right and fun. And until tomorrow, do the best you can. And may, as always, the Source be with you.